Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Father Joey.
And I'm Deacon Jeff.
We're here with coffee in the lectionary. I've got Thomas Cramner joining us today.
And I
And
don't have coffee again. Like I really got
yeah,
to get a handle on
I know
this.
we gotta get you introduced to some good decaf coffee that you can drink
Yeah.
late at night. All right, folks, welcome to Coffee and the Lectionary.
The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. John.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
As he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned, or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. And he anointed the man's eyes with mud and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam or Siloam. You're the priest. You can tell me whether I'm mispronouncing that,
I think you're
which
good.
means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar were saying, Is this not the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, It is he. Others said, No, but it is like him. He kept saying, I am the man. So they said to him, Then how were your eyes opened? He answered, The man called Jesus made mud and anointed my eyes and said to me, Go to Siloam and wash. And so I went and washed and received my sight. They said to him, Where is he? He said, I do not know. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples? And they reviled him, saying, You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered, Why, this is amazing. This is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, You were born in utter sin, and you would teach us? And they cast him out.
Hmm.
Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ. Whew.
There's a lot going on there.
It's a whole lot. It's another one that I just love this story. Everything about it. I love how tactile it is
Yeah.
with blood and the spit, that it's very um there's something about the humanness of Jesus, his
Hmm.
um that really comes through in that. There's just this earthy, that
Yeah.
Christ really was here physically, not in the spirit only, but in flesh, that
Yeah.
he could get spit and reach down and make mud. Well, Deacon Jeff, what are your magnificent insights for us today?
Well, as usual, the insights are mostly going to come from Matthew Henry because he always helps me with these things. Um, well, to set the scene at the beginning, we have to remember that he's at the time that Jesus sees this guy, he's running for his life because they're coming after him from the close of the previous chapter, and he basically barely escaped being stoned by everybody. And yet he takes the time out in the midst of this to see this man and take and have mercy on him. And I think that, so that's
Mhm.
amazing. And then it's also, I think, interesting that in a lot of these stories, the people are seeking Jesus out.
Right.
In this case, the man is not. I mean, he's just blind. He's been blind from birth, and Jesus sees him and has mercy on him.
Mhm.
And then we have this whole thing about the extraordinary and rather uh, unloving and uncharitable questions by the disciples. They immediately just leap to the conclusion that, oh, hey, Jesus, who sinned? I mean, they don't
Yeah.
need to jump right to this conclusion. Who
Yeah.
sinned, his parents or him, that made this loser this way?
And
You
doesn't
know?
that show you though that just how steeped in that worldview that
Yeah.
that thought is, right? Is
And
that
us too, I think, honestly, that a lot of this still hangs around, and it really is very similar to this to the book of Job. You know, that his friends come, they don't really help him because they're all just, this is the underlying assumption that they all have. There's that, oh
right?
wow, you really should have done something wrong. And isn't there a little bit of that in all of us when we see somebody who's struggling? It's like, oh, I wonder what he did
I wonder
to,
what they did.
yeah,
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And it's, you see someone on the streets and you think, "Ooh, where'd their parents screw up?" Or
yeah, yeah,
where, and yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's a good insight.
yeah,
I like your point about, here Christ is in a hurry. He's
yeah,
hurrying,
running for
and
his
yet
life.
yet he takes time to care for this man,
Yeah,
and in a really beautiful, tender way. I mean, we recoil at that idea of spit, uh,
right,
but I'm not sure if I don't think that's what we're meant to do. I don't think we're meant to recoil at that. I think we
right,
see the intimacy
yeah.
that's in that. Um,
Well, and the
and
other thing is he's using the tools that are at hand. You know, he doesn't
yeah,
use the excuse that I don't have water. I'm just going to make some of my own. And then
hmm,
I think the other big thing is that there's nothing magical about. Well, I mean, there's a whole lot to all that too. That there's that it's Christ that makes him. I mean, it's not the mud and the spit, but
right.
it's Christ that he's using very ordinary materials. But then you really think about, like, why would he do that? If you put mud on somebody's eyes, it's not going to open them; it's going to close them.
Hmm.
You know, and so there's also this element of we have to sort of, so much of the gospel is upside down, so he kind of makes him even more blind before he
Yeah.
goes and sees. And so
Yeah.
there's sort of these birth pangs of
Mm,
coming to Christ, that he actually makes it a little bit more difficult, and then gives him an assignment which he faithfully follows.
yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to that too, that it's he doesn't just go presto,
Right.
you're going to see he does something opposite, and then the guy has to
Yeah.
do some things,
Well, and of
and
course,
then he sees.
in other cases, we see Jesus doing just that, just laying his hands on, healing the
Hmm.
blind or the sick, and there is no process
Right,
um, uh, of healing. It's just, a word. And so you wonder why, what's going on here? What is it with this man and this whole story that
right,
this needed to unfold the way it was?
yeah,
Sorry, folks, I don't have answers for that today. But I think it's questions that we need to
yeah,
ask. And then it also might be a question of going, well, maybe there's not an answer to that. Maybe
yeah,
this is just us seeing the beauty and the mystery of Jesus at work, and that he
yeah,
doesn't always work the same way
right,
twice.
right. And then the other extraordinary thing is that he says there's only two places that I know of that he's so explicit in saying, and we talked about this in the last Sunday sermon, that the only other place he says, "I am Christ,"
Mm,
I am the Messiah, is to the woman at the well.
yeah,
And yet he's also very explicit and clear here. So I think that's an interesting aspect as well.
yeah, yeah. There's no mincing words here. He is saying it.
Yeah,
This is me. I think it's beautiful. I also, maybe this is just me reading into uh the blind man's personality, but the way it's written, it almost sounds like he's being a little cheeky with the Pharisees. Um,
Yeah.
when he's like, "Oh, you want to be their disciples too?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
clearly they don't want to be his disciples.
Yeah.
Uh, it's almost like he's been a little bit of of a
Yeah.
smart aleck. Now, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the case. I can't wait to meet this guy one day and
Yeah.
ask him about this encounter. Um, but I think um, it's a really interesting encounter. And he says, I'm pulling it up. He says, uh, he answered, "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." Um, oh wait, no, that's not what I wanted. It's the part where he said, I can't find it right here, even though I know it's right here. Um, he says, "What, you don't know? Like,
Right.
you are the
Yeah.
Pharisees. You
Right.
you don't know this?
Yeah.
How is it that I know this, but you
Right.
don't?" Um,
Yeah.
and that is, I mean, isn't that the gospel that Christ reveals to those that we least expect,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not to those that we think should have all the answers, but
Including this guy. He certainly wasn't expecting this to
yeah,
happen to him this day. Again, he's in this story, he's not seeking Christ. He's not being lowered, through a roof. He's not chasing behind him to touch his garment. He's just kind of hanging out, and Jesus turns and comes to him.
it's beautiful. I was blind, but now I see.
Yeah. Doesn't get much better
What,
than that.
whew, what a line. All right, Deacon Jeff. Well, thank you for your insights and the time. And folks, we are glad that you joined us this week, and we'll see you hopefully on Sunday. All right.
God
See you later,
bless.
everybody.